Welcome to my channel. Tonight, I want to share a story born from years of walking beside children in palliative care, not as a nurse, but as a witness to grace. This is not a story about dying. It is a story about how love builds bridges across time. About a boy named Leo who, knowing his days were few, chose not to say goodbye, but to write letters to moments he would never see. Letters to snowfalls yet to come. To birthdays without him. To a baby's first smile he would never witness with his eyes, but would meet with his heart. Find a quiet space. Breathe deeply. And let these words remind you. Even when bodies fade, love remains, not as memory, but as presence. The house stood where pine forest met meadow, a quiet place where morning light fell in gold pools across wide plank wooden floors worn smooth by generations of footsteps. Built by Leo's grandfather half a century earlier with hands calloused from honest work and a heart shaped by the Great Depression's quiet lessons, its walls held more than memories, they held breath. The scent of beeswax and old books lived in its corners. The creak of the third stair from the top spoke of midnight journeys for water. The faint pencil marks on the kitchen door frame charted the growth of 3 children across 40 years, Leo's father David among them, his height frozen at 6 feet 1 inch on his 16th birthday, the date scribbled beside it in his mother's looping cursive. This was not merely a structure of timber and nail. It was a living archive of ordinary grace. Here lived David, an engineer whose soul found solace in precision, the satisfying click of a caliper closing, the elegant logic of a bridge's arch distributing weight across impossible spans, the quiet hum of machinery operating exactly as designed. Before Leo's illness, David's evenings belonged to small projects. Restoring a 1947 typewriter found at a flea market, building a birdhouse with dovetail joints no bird would ever appreciate, calibrating the antique grandfather clock that had stood silent in the hallway since his own father's passing. His love language was repair. When Leo was 7 and dropped his favorite toy rocket down the heating vent, David spent 3 hours on his back beneath the house, emerging dusty and triumphant, the rocket clutched in grease-smudged fingers. He never said "I love you" easily. Those words felt too large for his mouth, but he spoke them in 1,000 silent ways. The way he always saved the last pancake with the perfect golden edges for Leo. The way he pours his newspaper to watch his son concentrate on a difficult math problem. The way his hand would rest briefly on Leo's shoulder when passing through a room, a touch so light it might have been accidental, yet never was. Claire, his wife, moved through the world with a different rhythm. A literature teacher at the local high school, she believed words held souls within their shapes. Her mornings began not with alarms but with light, the precise moment dawn touched the eastern ridge, painting her bedroom wall in hues of rose and apricot. She would rise then, wrap herself in a wool shawl the color of dried lavender, and carry a mug of Earl Grey tea to the porch rocker. For 20 minutes she sat in silence, watching mist rise from the meadow like ghosts returning to earth. Only then would she open her book, sometimes poetry, sometimes letters of Emily Dickinson or Rilke, sometimes the worn copy of The Little Prince she'd read to Leo every night until he was 10 and declared himself too old for fairy tales, though he still kept the book on his nightstand. Claire's classroom was famous among students not for strictness but for reverence. She taught them to listen to language the way one listens to a distant train at night, hearing not just sound but story, longing, destination. She could make a single line of Shakespeare vibrate with centuries of human experience. At home, she read aloud while cooking dinner, her voice weaving through the sizzle of onions and the rhythmic chop of knife on board. Leo grew up believing stories were as necessary as air. And then there was Leo, 12 years old when the world inside his body began its quiet betrayal. He had his mother's thoughtful eyes the color of twilight sky after rain, and his father's stubborn chin that appeared only when he was determined. His laugh was a rare instrument, deep for his age, warm as fresh bread, capable of dissolving tension in a room like sugar in tea. Before illness claimed him, Leo moved through life with the open curiosity of those who have not yet learned to be afraid. Each dawn brought his ritual question whispered to the ceiling as he stretched awake. What's beautiful today? Not what's fun or what's happening, but beautiful. This distinction mattered. It shaped how he moved through the world. He collected river stones not as trophies but as conversations. Kneeling on the bank of Miller's Creek every Saturday morning, rain or shine, much to Claire's exasperation, he'd turn over smooth grey rocks until he found one that spoke to him. A quartz vein catching light like a frozen lightning bolt, a fossil imprint of a fern from epochs ago, a perfect oval worn by centuries of current. He'd bring them home, wash them carefully in the kitchen sink, and arrange them on his windowsill according to a system only he understood. This one remembers dinosaurs, he told Sam once, holding up a black stone with a white spiral. This one has listened to every rainstorm since the glacier left. Sam rolled his eyes but secretly believed him. Leo built impossible machines from cardboard tubes and rubber bands, a cloud collector designed to capture dreams on foggy nights, a silence amplifier for hearing what trees whisper when humans aren't listening, a time smoother meant to stretch happy moments and compress sad ones. None worked, of course. But David never dismissed them. Instead, he'd sit beside his son on the garage floor, offering a steadier hand for glue application or suggesting a different pulley configuration. Engineering isn't about making things work the first time, he'd say, his voice low and steady. It's about learning why they didn't. In those moments, father and son existed in a perfect geometry, 2 points connected by attention, by shared purpose, by the quiet understanding that some things matter more than functionality. Books were Leo's second home. While other boys his age devoured fantasy series about chosen ones wielding magical swords, Leo sought stories where courage lived in small gestures. A lighthouse keeper maintaining his lamp through a hurricane not for glory, but because ships depended on it, a girl sharing her single orange with a stranger on a train, an old man planting trees whose shade he would never sit beneath. He loved Andersen's fairy tales not for their sanitized Disney adaptations but for their original, aching truth, the Little Mermaid dissolving into sea foam not with vengeance but with transcendent love, the steadfast tin soldier melting into a heart shape beside his paper ballerina. Why do you like sad stories? Claire asked him once. Leo considered this while tracing the grain of the kitchen table with his finger. They're not sad, he corrected gently. They're true. And truth makes you bigger inside. His best friend Sam arrived each afternoon like a small storm. Scuffed sneakers, grass-stained knees, pockets full of treasures, a robin's eggshell, a rusted key, a perfectly round piece of sea glass, though they lived 200 miles from any ocean. Sam was all motion where Leo was contemplation, all volume where Leo was quiet, but their friendship worked because neither tried to change the other. They built forts in Miller's Woods using fallen branches and an old bedsheet Sam's mother had donated to the Corps. They lay on their backs for hours watching clouds morph from dragons to sailing ships to nothing at all. They dreamed not of fame or fortune, but of specific, tangible wonders. Sailing to Nova Scotia to see the tides rise 30 feet in minutes, hiking the Appalachian Trail end to end, building a treehouse so elaborate it would have running water and electricity. David quietly purchased solar panels for this project months before Leo's diagnosis, storing them in the garage with a note. For when you're ready. One evening when they were 11, sitting on the garage roof as fireflies blinked their coded messages in the gathering dark, Leo asked a question that revealed the depth already growing in him. Sam, what if we never see the ocean? Sam, ever practical, grinned. Then we'll make our own sea right here, with puddles after rain and imagination. Leo was silent for a long time, watching a satellite trace its slow path across the violet sky. I don't mean that, he said finally. I mean, what if we only get to see a small piece of everything? Like, we'll never read all the books. Never meet all the people. Never see all the sunsets. What if life is just tasting a single drop from an ocean of beauty? Sam had no answer. But he remembered that question years later, after Leo was gone, standing on an actual beach for the first time and feeling not joy but a profound sense of continuation, as if Leo were tasting the salt air through him. Grandmother Eleanor, Claire's mother, visited every Saturday with a basket lined in red gingham cloth, filled with still warm apple pies made from the very tree shading Leo's window. At 82, she moved with the deliberate grace of someone who had made peace with time. Her hands were a map of her life. Veins like rivers crossing hills of age spots, fingers slightly bent from arthritis yet still capable of kneading dough to perfect elasticity or stitching a torn teddy bear with invisible seams. She had survived polio as a child, lost a husband to cancer at 50, raised 3 daughters alone while working as a librarian, all without bitterness. Her wisdom wasn't theoretical, it was forged in the daily practice of choosing light when darkness offered itself freely. She spoke to Leo not as a child to be protected from hard truths, but as a soul capable of holding complexity. She told him about the war, not battles or politics, but human moments. The German soldier who shared his bread with a starving French child, the nurse who sang lullabies in 3 languages to comfort wounded boys from different nations, the single daisy pushing through cracked pavement in a bombed-out square becoming a symbol of hope for an entire neighborhood. People think courage is loud, she told him once, shelling peas on the back porch while Leo sorted them by size. But real courage is quiet. It's the mother who gets up to make breakfast after receiving bad news. It's the old man who tends his garden though he knows he won't eat the harvest. It's choosing kindness when you've been hurt. She pours, her eyes holding his with unnerving directness. Remember this, my love. What matters isn't how long you stay, but what light you leave in others. Not your achievements. Not your possessions. The light you kindle in human hearts, that's what outlasts breath. Leo would nod politely, already thinking about the fort he and Sam were building or the new library book waiting on his nightstand. But seeds planted in childhood often sprout precisely when needed most. Months later, lying in his armchair watching dust motes dance in a sunbeam, he would suddenly recall Eleanor's words with startling clarity, as if she'd spoken them not to a boy playing with peas, but directly to the soul he was becoming in that moment of stillness. The diagnosis arrived not as a single thunderclap but a slow-moving fog, first a fatigue that sleep couldn't cure, then joint pain like cold settling deep in bone, finally the clinical phrases of doctors in hushed offices. The disease's name was long and foreign, a string of Latin syllables that meant little except "this will not end well." For weeks Leo refused surrender. Each morning he laced his sneakers with determination, stepped outside into the world he loved, and returned minutes later, pale and breathless, gripping the doorframe as the earth tilted beneath him. Claire cried silently in the shower where steam masked her tears. David worked late at the engineering firm, his hands trembling as he sketched blueprints he couldn't focus on, the numbers blurring into meaningless shapes. Then one November evening, Eleanor arrived earlier than usual. She found Claire staring blankly at a pot of boiling water that had long since evaporated, and David sitting motionless in his armchair, staring at a wall where Leo's growth marks climbed toward the ceiling. Without a word, Eleanor put on an apron, salvaged dinner, and set 3 places at the table. When Leo joined them, moving slowly, each step measured, she served him first, placing the crispest piece of chicken on his plate exactly as he liked it. After dinner, as David cleared plates with mechanical precision, she spoke words that shifted everything. You mourn that he can no longer run through fields. But I ask you, what wisdom will he teach you while sitting quietly by the window? What beauty will he notice that rushing feet never see? David looked up. Really looked, at his son's face illuminated by lamplight, at the depth gathering behind his eyes, at the quiet dignity with which he was meeting this impossible thing. And for the first time since diagnosis, David saw not a tragedy unfolding, but a transformation beginning. The boy who could no longer run was becoming something else, something perhaps rarer. A witness, a keeper of small truths, a student of light. The armchair by the window became Leo's sanctuary, a deep, worn thing upholstered in faded blue velvet that had cradled 3 generations of sick children, heartbroken teenagers, and elders taking their last breaths in this house. Its cushions held the shape of those who had sat there before him, and now they molded gently around Leo's diminishing form. The window faced east, catching morning light first, a deliberate choice by his grandfather who believed each day deserved a proper welcome. Beyond the glass stretched the garden where a gnarled apple tree stood sentinel, its branches twisting towards sky in angles that defied logic yet somehow worked. Planted by Leo's great-grandfather the year his own son was born, the tree had survived drought, lightning strike, and a harsh winter that killed every other fruit tree in the county. Each autumn it offered apples sweeter than any found in markets, small, russet-skinned fruits with flesh the color of honey and a flavor that tasted like memory itself. Leo watched this tree with new attention now that his world had shrunk to room-sized proportions. He noticed what rushing feet never see. How a single sparrow returned each dawn to the same branch, singing the same 3-note phrase until its mate arrived, how raindrops gathered on leaves not randomly but according to some hidden geometry, each drop finding its perfect position before the weight became too great, and it fell how snow transformed bare limbs into sculptures of light, each branch wearing ice like crystal jewelry. He observed an ant's patient journey across bark, stopping to clean its antennae, detouring around obstacles invisible to human eyes, persisting for a full hour until it reached its destination, a crumb of cookie Claire had placed there days earlier, now softened by dew. He witnessed the exact moment a bud unfurled, not a sudden event but a slow exhalation over hours, petals emerging like hands opening after prayer. He saw how a falling leaf spiraled not as descent but as dance, catching updrafts, spinning in joyous surrender, touching other leaves and parsing as if sharing secrets before meeting earth. In this stillness, Leo discovered a strange gift. Illness had stripped away noise, revealing the world's quiet music. Where before he'd heard only birdsong, now he distinguished the chickadee's cheerful dee-dee-dee from the mourning dove's melancholic coo, the woodpecker's staccato rhythm from the robin's liquid melody. Where before he'd felt only breeze, now he sensed its texture, cool and sharp from the north, warm and honeyed from the south, carrying different scents depending on its origin. Pine resin from the forest, damp earth from the creek, wood smoke from distant chimneys. He learned the language of light, how morning sun fell in sharp, defining beams that carved the world into clarity, how noonlight flattened everything beneath its impartial gaze, how afternoon sun stretched shadows into long blue fingers reaching across the floor, how evening light gilded every surface it touched, forgiving floors, transforming ordinary objects into vessels of gold. This heightened perception wasn't mystical, it was simply what happens when attention, no longer scattered across 100 distractions, concentrates on a single point. Like a lens focusing diffuse light into a single burning beam, Leo's consciousness now burned with quiet intensity on whatever entered his field of vision. A dust mote dancing in a sunbeam became a universe. The slow crawl of a snail across the windowsill became an epic journey. The gradual shift of shadow across the floorboards became time made visible. He began keeping a journal, not of symptoms or sadness, but of these small revelations. October 12th. The spider in the corner finished her web at dawn. Dew caught in it like scattered diamonds. She sat at the center not as prisoner, but as queen of her own geometry. November 3rd. First snow. Each flake unique as a fingerprint. They don't fall, they float, as if reluctant to leave the sky. December 21st. Shortest day. Sun touched the windowsill for exactly 47 minutes. I counted. It felt like a promise. School became memory. His teacher, Ms. Rivera, sent weekly packets of assignments. Math problems Leo solved with quiet focus. History essays he wrote with unexpected depth. But these were formalities. The real education happening in that room had no curriculum. Sam visited every Tuesday and Thursday after school, arriving with backpack still on, cheeks flushed from running the last block. At first he tried to maintain normalcy, reporting on soccer games, classroom dramas, the latest video game, but conversations grew shorter, silences longer. Leo didn't mind the silence. He'd learned that silence between friends isn't empty, it's a shared space where words aren't needed because presence suffices. One afternoon in January, Sam arrived unusually quiet. He sat on the floor by Leo's chair, knees drawn to his chest, and stared at his scuffed sneakers for 10 full minutes before speaking. "Jake Miller said you're gonna die," he blurted finally, voice cracking on the last word. Leo didn't flinch. He'd heard the whispers at school before he stopped attending, the sideways glances, the hushed conversations that stopped when he approached. He'd seen the pity in teachers' eyes when they thought he wasn't looking. But Sam's raw honesty felt like a gift. "I might," Leo said simply. Nobody knows for sure. This was true. The doctors spoke in probabilities, not certainties. But both boys understood the subtext. Sam wiped his nose with the back of his hand. "It's not fair. You're the best person I know." Tears welled in his eyes, and he angrily brushed them away. Stupid tears. Leo reached down, not easily, his joints protesting the movement, and placed his hand over Sam's. The gesture was small, but it carried the weight of everything unspoken between them. "Listen," Leo said softly. "When I'm gone, don't stop living. Don't do the things I would have done. That's not what I want. Do the things you want to do. And when you see something beautiful, a sunset, a really cool bug, whatever, just for a second, imagine I'm seeing it with you. Not because I'm a ghost or anything weird. Just because love doesn't stop when breathing does. It changes shape. Like water turning to vapor, it's still water, just elsewhere." Sam didn't understand all of it then. But years later, standing on a real beach in Nova Scotia watching the Bay of Fundy's impossible tides rise 30 feet in minutes, he would feel Leo beside him, not as memory, but as presence. And he would whisper to the wind, "You were right. It's all connected." The turning point came on a late November afternoon when grey sky pressed low and wind stripped the last leaves from maple trees lining the lane. Leo woke with a hollow feeling, not in his body, which had grown accustomed to its limitations, but in his spirit. A question had taken root and now demanded answer. What remains when I am gone? Not possessions, those would gather dust or be given away. Not achievements, his science fair ribbons and soccer trophies would fade in significance with each passing year. Not even memories, they were fragile things, subject to time's erosion, prone to distortion. What truly remained? He asked Claire to open the window. Cold air rushed in, carrying wood smoke from distant chimneys and the rich scent of damp earth preparing for winter. A single raindrop traced a winding path down the glass, starting near the top left corner, veering right to avoid a smudge, pausing where the glass was slightly uneven, then continuing its journey until it reached the bottom edge and vanished. And in that moment, clarity struck with the force of physical touch. He would leave this world like that drop, vanishing into earth, while those he loved remained with a silence nothing could fill. They would watch next winter's snow and ache for his laughter. They would celebrate his birthday with cake and candle, then blow it out alone. His mother would find one of his socks behind the dryer months later and collapse into sobs. His father would hear a certain song in the grocery store and have to abandon his cart mid-aisle. The thought that his absence would bring only pain, not peace, became unbearable. That night he lay awake as moonlight painted silver rivers across the ceiling, illuminating dust motes dancing like tiny spirits. He thought of time, how it flows equally for all, yet for him had suddenly grown short, truncated like a branch cut before bearing fruit. He remembered Eleanor's words. "What light will you leave?" And then it came, not as dramatic revelation but as gentle knowing, like a seed cracking open after long darkness. He could weave a thread. Not a farewell letter filled with "I'll miss yous and don't forget Ms." Not instructions for grief. "Mom, you should travel again. Dad, fix that clock." But a lifeline of words stretching across years, letters addressed not to today's pain but to tomorrow's moments when love would need a voice. Letters to specific, ordinary moments he would never witness but could imagine with such precision they might as well be memories. His mother watching first snowfall 5 years from now, his father finally repairing the grandfather clock on a quiet Sunday morning, a baby sister, a possibility he'd begun to sense in his mother's lingering glances at nurseries, taking her first steps beneath the apple tree. At dawn he asked for a notebook, not a school binder with superhero covers, but something worthy of this task. Claire brought 3 options from the local bookstore. Leo chose the one with soft linen cover the color of dried lavender, pages thick and cream-toned, binding that opened flat without resistance. He took his favorite pen, the black rollerball he'd used for stories and science reports since 3rd grade, its barrel worn smooth by his fingers, and began. Words came slowly at first, like water from a tap in winter. He paused to breathe, to find precise phrases, to let tears fall without shame onto the page where they bloomed like tiny ink blots before drying. He wrote not as a dying boy seeking comfort, but as a son who understood love's geometry. It expands rather than divides. He wrote not to ease his own departure but to prepare a path for theirs, a path lit by his words when darkness fell upon them. The first letter took 3 days to complete, each sentence weighed and measured not for literary merit but for truth. He wrote to Claire on her first birthday without him, a date he knew would wound deeper than his final breath because birthdays are for celebration. And how does one celebrate when the celebrant is gone? He described not grand gestures but small truths he'd noticed over 12 years of loving her. How she hummed old folk songs while washing dishes, believing no one heard how her eyes softened when reading poetry aloud, as if the words themselves were tender things needing gentle handling. How she transformed ordinary dinners into celebrations with wildflowers in a mason jar and candles even on weeknights because darkness deserves beauty too. He wrote of her hands, warm and capable, the same hands that had bandaged his childhood scrapes with butterfly closures applied just so, that had braided his sister's hair, a hypothetical sister he somehow knew would come, that now smoothed his blanket with infinite tenderness each night before leaving the room. "Mom," he wrote, the pen moving with surprising steadiness despite the tremor in his fingers, "I know my leaving will leave a hollow space inside you. But hollow spaces aren't empty, they become vessels for new kinds of light. You'll begin noticing beauty you once rushed past because you were too busy getting somewhere. The way frost paints cathedral windows on winter mornings, the particular shade of blue in a jay's wing as it flashes between trees, the courage in a single crocus pushing through late snow. That will be me, not as ghost hovering in corners, but as your awakened attention. The world has always been beautiful. I'm just helping you see it more clearly. When you stand at the window on my birthday watching snowfall, don't think he's gone. Think he's here, in each flake catching the light, in the silence between flakes, in the way the whole world turns white and starts again. Because love doesn't obey time's rules. It simply is, like breath, like starlight, like the earth remembering every rain that ever fell upon it. You taught me that stories matter. Now let me give you this one. Our story isn't ending. It's changing chapters. And the next chapter holds its own beauty, if you have eyes to see it. He sealed this letter in an envelope made from the same lavender paper, addressed it simply to Mom, and placed it in the wooden box on Claire's bedside table, the box that held her grandmother's pearl earrings, David's wedding ring during his brief hospital stay years ago, and other small treasures deemed too precious for drawers. "Don't read it yet," he told her when she entered with his afternoon tea. "You'll know when the time comes." She nodded, her throat too tight for words, and placed the box exactly where it belonged, between her pillow and the headboard, where she'd see it each night before sleep. The second letter grew from watching David. His father was a man of quiet hands, the kind who showed love through action, not words. Before diagnosis, David's love lived in the details. The way he always checked Leo's bike brakes before each ride, the careful sharpening of pencils for the first day of school, the Saturday morning pancakes shaped like animals when Leo was small. After diagnosis, those gestures continued but acquired a new fragility, as if each act might be the last, infusing ordinary moments with unbearable weight. David's movements grew careful, almost fearful, not of contagion, but of accelerating what was already unfolding. He'd pause before entering Leo's room, hand hovering over the doorknob as if gathering courage. He'd place a glass of water on the bedside table with exaggerated slowness, as if the slightest vibration might shatter his son. One afternoon Leo saw his father in the garage, standing before the antique grandfather clock inherited from his own father. The clock had stood silent in the hallway since David was 16, its mechanism frozen the day his father died suddenly of a heart attack while mowing the lawn. David had promised himself he'd repair it someday. 25 years later, someday remained unrealized. Now he stood before it, having dragged it into the garage for this purpose, a small gear cupped in his palm like a wounded bird. His shoulders shook with silent tears, tears he believed hidden behind the garage door, tears he'd never allow Leo to witness. That evening Leo began the second letter. He wrote of his father as craftsman of moments. How patiently he taught shoelace tying using the bunny ears method even when other parents switched to Velcro. How pride glowed in his eyes when Leo rode a bike alone for the first time, David running alongside longer than necessary, and hovering near the seat. How his rough hands became impossibly gentle when holding something fragile, a newborn chick, a butterfly with torn wing, Leo himself after nightmares. "Dad," he wrote, choosing words with the precision his father would appreciate, "you think strength means never crying. That's the story men tell each other to survive. But I saw your tears in the garage today. And they weren't weakness, they were love so deep it overflowed its banks. You taught me broken things can be mended. But people don't break, we transform. Like wood smoothed by river currents, we become something new. Not less, not damaged, but changed in ways that reveal hidden grain. After I'm gone, you'll be different. Not broken. Not less of a man. Simply changed, like the landscape after rain. Same earth, but washed clean, revealing colors hidden beneath dust. And in that new shape, you'll discover strength you never knew you carried. You'll finally repair that clock. And each time it chimes midnight, know. That's me whispering time is not your enemy. It's the current carrying you toward light you can't yet see. Don't fight it. Float. When you sit beneath our apple tree at sunset, don't think I've been abandoned. Think I've been taught to see sunsets with new eyes, eyes that notice how light lingers in the branches long after it leaves the sky, eyes that understand darkness isn't empty but full of stars waiting to be seen. Because I'm not leaving you. I'm becoming part of how you see the world. And that's a kind of forever. The third letter arrived unexpectedly on the spring equinox, a day when light and darkness balanced perfectly across the globe. Snow retreated from garden edges like a slow tide, revealing brave green shoots pushing through soil still cold from winter's grip. Claire read poetry aloud that afternoon. Mary Oliver's gentle words about wild geese and belonging, about the world offering itself to your imagination over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Leo listened with eyes closed, his chest rising and falling in a rhythm that had grown shallower over weeks but retained its essential music. When Claire finished reading, silence settled between them, not empty but full, like the space between musical notes that gives melody its meaning. Then Leo asked softly, his voice barely louder than the turning of a page, "Will you have another child someday?" Claire froze. The question hung in the air like a single note sustained beyond its natural duration. Fear flickered in her eyes, not fear of the question itself, but fear of the territory it opened. The fear of betrayal. How could they love another child without diminishing Leo? The fear of replacement. Would this new child become an attempt to fill the Leo-shaped hole? The fear of double grief. What if they lost another child? These fears lived deep in her bones, unspoken but present as gravity. Leo opened his eyes and saw all of it reflected in her face. The love, the terror, the impossible calculus of a mother's heart. And he smiled. Not a brave smile forced through pain, but a real smile that reached his eyes and softened the sharp angles illness had carved into his face. "I hope you do," he said. The words carried no weight of obligation or expectation, only genuine hope, like wishing for sunshine on a picnic day. And in that moment, something shifted in Claire. The fear didn't vanish, but it made room for something else. Possibility. That evening Leo began the third letter. He addressed it not to a hypothetical sibling but to his parents holding a newborn. The weight of that small body in their arms, the scent of milk and newness, the terrifying joy of loving someone so fragile you fear your own heartbeat might disturb their sleep. He wrote of the particular magic of a baby's first smile, not the reflexive smile of digestion but the intentional smile of recognition, the moment a soul announces its presence through curved lips. He described the way tiny fingers curl around an adult's thumb with primal trust, the way a sleeping infant's chest rises and falls in perfect rhythm with the universe's oldest song. "You worry that loving a new child means loving me less," he wrote, his pen moving with a certainty that belied his weakening body. But love isn't a pie to be divided, each slice smaller than the last. Love is light that multiplies with each new source. One candle doesn't dim when you light another, the room simply grows brighter. I won't vanish from your lives. I'll become the quiet note beneath your family's new song, the harmony that makes the melody richer. When that baby smiles in sleep, really smiles, not just gas, the kind that makes your breath catch because it's so full of joy, that's me smiling with her. Not as ghost, not as replacement, but as the love you carry forward, transformed into new capacity for wonder. When she reaches for sunbeams dancing on the wall, that's me showing her where light lives, not because I'm directing her hand, but because the love I left behind taught you to notice light, and you'll teach her too. Tell her about me. Not as tragedy whispered in hushed tones. Not as the child we lost, as if I were a set of keys misplaced between couch cushions, but as the big brother who waited eagerly for her arrival. Show her my photos, not just the posed ones, but the real ones. Me covered in mud after chasing frogs, me scowling at a math test, me laughing so hard milk came out my nose. Tell her I loved climbing our apple tree until the branches grew too thin to hold me, that I was afraid of spiders but faced that fear every time I cleared the cobwebs from the garage corners for you, Dad, that I believed every stone held a story if you listened closely enough. Let her know. Before her came love. Deep, abiding, unshakable love. And that love didn't disappear when I left. It grew wider, deeper, more capable, specifically to hold her too. Because family isn't a list of names on a document. It's a single thread woven through time, sometimes visible, sometimes hidden in the weave, but always present, always connecting. And I am part of that thread. Always. He finished the letters in early May, just as apple blossoms began to unfurl like pink-tinged promises against the blue sky. The notebook, now filled with his careful script, went into Claire's wooden box beside the first 2 envelopes. "Don't read them yet," he repeated, his voice weaker but his gaze steady. "You'll know when the time comes. Your heart will tell you." Claire nodded, her hand closing around the box as if it contained not paper but pulse. Summer unfolded with deceptive gentleness. Leo grew weaker. Some days he could sit upright for only an hour before exhaustion claimed him, but his presence deepened like a candle burning lower yet casting warmer, more concentrated light. He watched sunsets with quiet intensity, as if memorizing colors to carry beyond the horizon. He asked for windows open wide even on cool evenings, listening to the symphony of a world continuing beautifully without him. Crickets tuning their instruments at dusk, owls calling across the meadow, distant laughter from neighbors' barbecues, the steady rhythm of his parents breathing as they sat with him in comfortable silence. Eleanor brought a potted African violet one afternoon in June, the kind with velvety leaves and delicate purple flowers that bloom continuously if given proper care. "Keep it by your window," she said, placing it on the sill where it would catch morning light but not harsh afternoon sun. "Water it from below. Never let water touch the leaves or they'll spot. Turn it a quarter turn each day so it grows evenly toward the light." Leo nodded seriously, as if receiving sacred instructions. The violet became his project, his last act of stewardship. Each morning he'd carefully pour water into its saucer, watch it absorb through the drainage holes, gently rotate the pot while murmuring encouragement. The violet responded with new buds daily, its purple faces nodding in afternoon light like tiny bells ringing softly in the quiet room. It bloomed until the end, its final flower opening the morning Leo left this world, as if refusing to outlive the hand that had tended it. He departed on an October morning when the world was painted in fire, maples blazing crimson, oaks glowing bronze, the apple trees' leaves turning gold before their final release. The sky was impossibly clear, a blue so deep it felt like a promise. Sunlight streamed through the window, gilding dust motes dancing above his bed like ascending spirits. The violet on the windowsill held its bloom. Claire's lavender-scented sweater lay draped over the chair where she'd sat through the night, her hand never leaving his. David stood at the foot of the bed, his engineer's mind quiet for once, simply witnessing. There was no struggle, no dramatic last breath, just a slow softening, like a wave returning to ocean, like a sigh finding its home. And then stillness, not empty, but full. The kind of stillness that follows a perfect chord held until its vibration becomes part of the air itself. David and Claire remained in the room for a long time after. Not crying, not yet. Just sitting in the new reality, learning its shape. Finally David rose, kissed his son's forehead with a tenderness that contained every unspoken "I love you" of 12 years, and left the room to make the necessary calls. Claire stayed, smoothing the blanket one last time, tucking the violet, now carefully wrapped in damp paper towel, into the box with the letters. "Rest now, my love," she whispered. "You've done your work." The first year moved like a dream underwater, movements made without true presence, meals prepared and eaten without tasting, days endured rather than lived. Grief wasn't a wave that crashed and receded, it was the water itself, constant, encompassing, altering how they moved through the world. Leo's first birthday without him in November shattered them completely. Claire stayed in bed until noon, unable to face a world that continued turning without her son. David sat on the garden bench for hours, staring at the empty space where Leo's bicycle had leaned against the fence for years, its tires slowly deflating until they were flat circles of rubber. As dusk fell and the first stars appeared, Leo's favorite time of day, when the sky remembers it has diamonds, Claire remembered the wooden box. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step an effort, and retrieved it from her bedside table. Sitting on the floor with her back against the bed, she opened the first envelope. The paper felt alive in her hands, charged with intention, with love that had crossed time to meet her precisely here, in this moment of unbearable pain. She read Leo's words by lamplight, tears falling onto the page where they traced paths beside his ink, two fluids mingling across time, his hope, her sorrow, becoming something new together. When she finished, she didn't feel better. Grief doesn't work that way, but she felt met. Seen. Understood in her pain, not from outside looking in, but from within the pain itself. Leo hadn't offered platitudes, his in a better place, or demands, don't be sad. He had simply said, I know this hurts, and I am with you in the hurting. She called David inside. He read his letter standing at first, then sinking to the floor beside her, his broad shoulders shaking with sobs he'd held back for months. For the first time since diagnosis, he wept without restraint, great heaving cries that cleansed rather than wounded. When he finished, he looked at Claire and said 3 words he'd never said aloud before. I'm so sad. And in that admission lived the beginning of healing. Years flowed like a slow river, carving its path through stone, not erasing the stone, but revealing its hidden beauty. Claire returned to poetry slowly, first reading silently in the bathtub with door locked against interruption, then aloud to empty rooms as if practicing for an audience of 1, finally to David on the porch at dusk while fireflies blinked their coded messages in the gathering dark. She began teaching again part-time in January, her voice trembling the first day she stood before students. But when a girl in the back row asked a question about metaphor with genuine curiosity, Claire saw Leo's face superimposed over hers for a fleeting second, and in that moment, teaching became possible again. David repaired the grandfather clock in March of the 2nd year. He worked on it every Sunday afternoon for 6 weeks, his engineer's hands remembering skills learned from his own father decades earlier. When he finally placed the pendulum and gave it its first push, the clock ticked to life with a sound like a heartbeat restored. At midnight it chimed 12 times, deep, resonant notes that filled the house not with sadness but with continuity. David stood before it with closed eyes, tears tracing paths through the dust on his cheeks. And in that moment, he understood Leo's letter not as poetry but as physics. Time wasn't the enemy stealing his son away. Time was the medium through which love traveled, like sound through air, like light through space. The chimes weren't marking loss, they were carrying Leo's presence forward, second by second, hour by hour, into a future he would never see but would somehow inhabit anyway. They didn't forget Leo. How could they? His absence was a presence itself, a shape carved into their lives that defined everything around it. But sharp grief gradually softened into warm sorrow, the kind that accompanies memories of a beloved journey that changed you forever. They learned to carry him not as a weight but as a lens, seeing the world through eyes he'd helped them open. Claire noticed frost patterns on winter mornings and smiled. David paused to watch a spider rebuild its web after rain and felt a quiet kinship with persistence. They still set a place for Leo at Thanksgiving dinner, not out of obligation, but because his seat at the table remained his, just as his place in their hearts remained unoccupied by anyone else. Eleanor passed gently in her sleep 2 years after Leo, her hands folded over the faded quilt she'd made for her first grandchild. Her final words to Claire, spoken the afternoon before she died, was simple and sure. He completed his purpose. Not in spite of dying, but through it. He taught you to love more deeply, to see more clearly, to hold beauty without clutching it. Now carry that light forward. Not for him, for the world that needs it. 5 years after Leo's departure, in the gentle light of an April morning, Claire gave birth to a daughter. The pregnancy had been unexpected, a surprise of 42 that initially brought not joy but terror. What if they loved this child less because their hearts were already occupied? What if loving her felt like betrayal? What if they lost her too? But as Claire's belly swelled with new life, something shifted, not a replacement of grief, but an expansion of capacity. The love for Leo didn't diminish, it created space for more love, like a tree whose roots grow deeper to support new branches. During labor's hardest moment, transition, when the body believes it cannot continue, Claire felt a presence. Not a vision, not a voice, but a certainty. A gentle pressure on her shoulder, exactly where Leo used to rest his hand when walking beside her, and a whisper in her heart that carried the cadence of his voice. Breathe, Mom. I'm here. You can do this. She didn't question it. She simply breathed, pushed, and welcomed her daughter into the world. They named her Maya, Sanskrit for illusion, but also for magic, for the veil between worlds, for the beauty that makes life worth living despite its sorrows. Maya arrived red-faced and crying, her fingers already curled as if grasping for the light she'd left behind. David held her and felt the world regain its axis, not the same axis as before, but a new one, true and steady. Maya had Claire's thoughtful eyes but Leo's smile, that same curve of lips suggesting quiet joy even in sleep. When she was 3 days old, Claire placed a single apple blossom on her chest as she slept. Maya's tiny hand closed around the stem, and in that moment both parents understood. This was not replacement. This was continuation. On Maya's first birthday, they sat beneath the apple tree now heavy with fruit, small russet apples gleaming like captured sunlight. Maya, unsteady on new legs, wobbled toward a butterfly with the determined focus only toddlers possess. Claire watched her daughter chase wonder across the grass and remembered the third letter. She retrieved the weathered notebook from its place in the wooden box, now kept on Maya's bookshelf between board books about animals and colors. The pages had yellowed at the edges. Leo's handwriting faded slightly but still legible, still alive with intention. She read the third letter aloud to David as Maya played in the dappled light beneath the tree. When Claire reached the passage about the baby's first intentional smile, Maya chose that exact moment to look up from her exploration, catch her mother's gaze, and smile, not a reflexive gummy grin but a full-faced beam of recognition and joy that transformed her entire being. Claire's voice broke. David reached for her hand. They wept, not tears of loss, but of wholeness. Their family wasn't broken. It had transformed, expanded, become more itself. The love for Leo hadn't been divided, it had multiplied, creating capacity for Maya without diminishing what remained for him. That evening Claire held Maya close, breathed in the scent of baby shampoo and milk, and whispered against her downy hair. This is your big brother Leo. He waited so eagerly to meet you. He helped make room for you in our hearts. Maya grew into a child who seemed to carry both sorrow and joy in equal measure. A girl who cried when she stepped on an ant but laughed with abandon at bubbles, who asked profound questions at bedtime, do stars get lonely, and collected rocks with the same reverence Leo had shown. At 3, she began referring to Leo as my sky brother, a phrase she invented herself after Claire explained that Leo lived in the sky now. No, Mommy, Maya corrected gently one evening, pointing to the sunset. He doesn't live in the sky. He is the sky. And the trees. And the quiet when I listen really hard. Claire had no words. She simply held her daughter tighter, understanding that some truths bypass intellect and speak directly to soul. They told Maya about Leo not as tragedy but as gift. They showed her photos, the muddy frog-chasing ones, the math test scowls, the milk-through-nose laughter. They took her to Miller's Creek where Leo had collected stones, and together they searched for rocks with interesting stories. They sat beneath the apple tree and told her how her brother had loved its crooked branches, how he'd watched its cycles of bloom and fruit and bareness with patient attention. Maya would place her small hand against the bark and close her eyes. "He's still growing here," she'd announce with toddler certainty. And in a sense, she was right. The tree's rings held his years within them. Its fruit carried sweetness he'd helped cultivate through his attention. Its shade offered rest to a sister who would never know him with her eyes but would know him with her heart. 2 years later, on what would have been Leo's 19th birthday, they returned to the apple tree in late afternoon light. Maya, now 5, ran through grass gathering daisies into a lopsided bouquet for my sky brother. Claire held the notebook, its cover softened by years of careful handling, its pages bearing the faint watermarks of tears shed across half a decade. She turned to the final page Leo had written on. It remained blank, intentionally so. He'd left the last page empty, a silence more eloquent than any words. Watching Maya laugh beneath blossoming branches, her golden hair catching the sun, her small hands carefully selecting the whitest daisies for her brother's bouquet, Claire finally understood the meaning of that blank page. It wasn't an omission. It was the final letter. No words needed because the message was life itself, continuing, blooming, reaching for light. Maya was the letter. Her laughter was the ink. Her existence was the proof that love doesn't end. It transforms, multiplies, becomes new life while honoring what came before. The empty page held everything. The apple blossoms drifting like snow in May, the violet that had bloomed until the end, the clock chiming midnight in an empty house, the first smile of a baby who would never meet her brother but would carry his legacy in her capacity for wonder. The letters had fulfilled their purpose. They hadn't saved Leo from death. Nothing could. But they had saved his parents from despair. They had transformed absence not into emptiness but into connection, a thread fine as spider silk yet strong as time itself. And whenever snow fell in quiet layers outside the window, whenever the grandfather clock chimed the hour with its restored voice, whenever Maya smiled in her sleep with that particular curve of lips so like her brother's, the thread hummed with presence. Not memory, not ghost, but love continuing its work in new forms. As sunset painted the sky in rose and gold that evening, Claire took Maya's hand, small and trusting in her own. David walked beside them, his arm around Claire's shoulders, his other hand brushing against Maya's swinging arm with casual tenderness. Maya carried her bouquet of wildflowers, stems wrapped in a blade of grass she'd braided with surprising skill. And in the space between their footsteps, in the scent of grass and wood smoke and apple blossoms, in the warmth of joined hands and shared silence, they all three felt it. They were together. Time hadn't separated them. It had simply changed how they met. And that new form was beautiful, like a letter written in love, sealed with hope, delivered across years to arrive exactly when needed. The apple tree stood in full bloom behind them, petals drifting on the evening breeze like snow in May, like confetti celebrating a homecoming rather than a departure. And if you looked closely between branches, in the dance of light and shadow where day surrendered to night, you might glimpse not a face but a feeling, a sense of peace so complete it felt like presence, a quiet joy that needed no explanation, the certainty that love, once given, never truly leaves. It simply changes shape, becoming memory, becoming courage, becoming the hand we extend to another in darkness, becoming the light we notice in ordinary moments because someone taught us how to see. Leo was where he belonged, not gone, not lost, but woven into the fabric of their days like golden thread in indigo cloth. Sometimes visible, sometimes hidden in the weave, but always present, always strengthening the whole. And in that truth lived not consolation for loss, but celebration of connection, a connection no boundary of breath or time could ever sever. Thank you for sharing this sacred space with me tonight. If Leo's story touched something in your heart, Carry that tenderness into your world. Share this with someone who needs to remember. Love never truly leaves. It changes form, becomes memory, becomes courage, becomes the hand we extend to another in darkness. If these words brought you peace, consider subscribing to God's Quiet Place. Here we don't avoid life's hardest truths. We meet them gently and discover light waiting within them. Before you go, close your eyes for just one breath. Remember someone you've loved and lost. And know this with your whole being. They are not gone. They live in how you love more deeply now. In how you notice beauty you once rushed past. In the quiet moments when you feel a presence beside you, not as memory, but as grace. You are held. You are loved. And those you've loved, they remain with you, always. Until next time in the quiet. Walk gently